Do you ever wonder what makes AI seem so smart? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. Welcome to Another Day, Another Decade. This is where we curate all of the top news stories every single day. And one of the most top news stories today is the post from Washington Post. Inside the secret list of websites that make AI like ChatGPT sound smart. Well, I've read this so you don't have to. And it's not really looking into ChatGPT because the GPT engine right now is kind of a black box. We don't know what's inside of it, but they do know what's inside of Google's C4 dataset. So they took a look at that just to give you an idea of what kind of things GPT could be trained on. So it's a pretty cool website, pretty cool post. If you continue to scroll, it automatically loads this area that shows you what is what. So inside of Google's C4, which we could assume is something similar to what GPT has been trained on, what you have is about 16% of categorized tokens under business and industrial. 15% of that is technology, 11% of that is arts and entertainment, 13% news and media. Then we jump over into health and science being over at 9%, hobbies and leisure about 8%, jobs and education 7%, home and garden 6%, travel 6%, law and government 4%, community 5%. But let's dive in to see what specifically that means. Under news and media, you can see that Wikipedia and Scribd.com are just a few of the platforms that they use. Everything from Wikipedia to Wowhead, things like patents.google.com as well, where they can pull information. We continue to scroll. We see thriveglobal.com, wowhead.com, and this is where they scrub a bunch of data and collect a bunch of information. Colorado voters and floridavoters.com. These two could possibly have some significant privacy concerns. What kind of information are they scrubbing from these websites? We continue to scroll. Content without consent. Things like Kickstarter.com, Patreon.com. Currently, artists receive no compensation or credit when their work is included in AI data training. You could have very well created content that GPT has been trained on, but you never allowed that to happen. You have a copyright claim on the content that you put out. Any creative work you create, you own the rights to. But then when you post it on the internet and then somebody scrapes that data to then create their own data set, things get kind of weird. All of the news, things like New York Times, LA Times, The Guardian, Forbes.com, HuffPost.com, WashingtonPost.com, it's just loaded with information that these chatbots are just constantly scraping to build their data sets. This is how they learn what they need to learn. Imagine if you sat down and you learned and read every single thing on the New York Times, and then you were able to recall that information in a matter of seconds. That's what makes GPT feel so smart. That's what makes these AIs feel so smart. They also dive into religious sites that reflect a Western perspective. Now, this is where things could get very interesting and potentially introduce some sort of bias, because out of the top 20 religious sites, 14 were Christian, 2 were Jewish, and only 1 was Muslim. 1 was Mormon, and 1 was a Jehovah's Witness, and 1 that celebrated all religions. Now see, this is where it gets weird, because the top Christian site, Grace to You, belongs to a Grace Community Church, an evangelical megachurch in California that has reported that the church counseled women to continue to submit to abusive fathers and husbands and to avoid reporting them to authorities. So if AI is being trained on these types of things, is that just training them to have these types of biases? It's also trained on a trove of personal blogs, software, blogs, hardware, internet services, and social media. Everything from sites.google.com to medium.com. C4 stands for Colossal Clean Crawled Corpus. This is where they remove gibberish and duplicate text. They have an open source list of dirty, naughty, obscene, and otherwise bad words that include a list of 402 terms in English and 1 emoji, a hand making a common but obscene gesture, and they filter out that type of stuff in their AI training. But again, this could cause a problem, because even as that list blocks the intended racial slurs and obscenities, it also eliminates some non-sexual LGBTQ content. As prior research has shown, a lot gets past the filters. They found hundreds of examples of pornographic websites and more than 72,000 instances of a swastika. So there's a lot of problems with how to actually scrape data. Your website could be a part of that data set that AI is being trained on. These are some of the highest iterations definitions of tokens based off of Google's C4 dataset, patents, Wikipedia, Scribed, New York Times, journals, LA Times, The Guardian, Forbes, HuffPost, Patents.com, Washington Post, and more. But what gets crazy is that C4 is huge already, but things like GPT-3 are much bigger. And things like GPT-4 are even bigger than that. They're pretty much scrubbing the entire internet, filtering out the bad stuff. But how do we filter out bias? How do we manipulate knowledge? How do we get the information that we're looking for? I think these are some of the things that Elon Musk was concerned about. These are some of the things that he talks about with his Truth GPT. We'll see if he could ever put together something that avoids these biases. But again, this space moves so fast. If you never want to miss a thing, scroll down, hit that subscribe button. What we do here is we curate all the top news stories every single day. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.